fellow Toastmasters, distinguished guests. When I was growing up, I had to grow up in a very rough neighborhood. A lot of the people that I grew up with were from broken homes and had to do things that were questionable because they had no one else to defend them. And during our times of growing up as young kids, we learned two valuable lessons during that time. One lesson is that if you disrespected someone, there were consequences. I remember one time when my buddy and I, when we were playing basketball, and one of my buddies coincidentally said a remark to one of the gang leader's younger brothers. The younger brother went back to his brother and told him the remark. 5 minutes later, he came back and told him that he disrespected his brother and that he was going to punch him in the face, and he had to take that, or either he was going to get jumped or stabbed or possibly killed. He took the punch and got a black eye. But we lived under those conditions as kids that if you disrespected someone, there were consequences. So that was one. And two is that if you didn't stand up for yourself, you would be bullied forever. Another time I had to go to school and I was getting bullied by a few kids. I had to push them and try to provoke some sort of response to where they can leave me alone. And that was enough for them to respect me and for them to leave me alone. And for the rest of my time throughout middle school, they left me alone and I wasn't bullied. But some other kids weren't lucky because they didn't stand up for themselves and they were bullied forever. So those are two lessons that I grew up with when I was in middle school, elementary school, and entering into high school. And I had to relearn those two lessons in one incident that happened to me when I was 14 years old. So going to this incident, I was once again playing basketball with my buddies, and there was this neighborhood bully. His name was David, but we named him DW, or he would like to be called D-Dub. He was a very tall man, strong, muscle-bound. He looked like a gang member from Compton somewhere, which he probably was, and he meant business. He was intimidating, he was frightening, he was a bully. One day after the NBA Finals, I was excited that one team won the finals, and he looked at me and said, "Well, that's not the team that you rooted for. You're being a little B. You need to root for the team that you should root for." And I responded back saying, "Why do you care about the team I'm rooting for? It's none of your business. Go away." Well, he didn't like that too much. He said, "What did you say?" And I said, "Go away." And he said, "Okay, bet." He took off his shirt and he said, "We're fighting." And I said, "Okay, we're fighting." Wow. Now, I had no chance. I was about 5'6", probably 135 pounds. He was 6'2", 240 pounds. I had no chance. But I knew from the time I grew up that I had to stand up for myself. So I went in fighting position, and I'm trying to find a way to hit him. And all of a sudden, he knocks me out with the cleanest punch you can ever see. And I fall to the floor, and he literally knocked me out. And he broke my jaw. He broke my jaw. And as he was trying to come for the finishing blow, my friends told him to back away, and they brought me up, and I was walking away trying to get my consciousness back. And he said, "Owen, if I ever see you around here, I swear on everything, I'll kill you." And then he drove off, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out what on earth just happened. Trying to find where my consciousness was and also my pride. My friends were all looking at me wanting to get revenge. They said, "He disrespected you. You should pay him back. You should do that." But then I remember as a kid going to church, there was one lesson that I heard about a few weeks prior that was in my head during that time. And it was talking about turning the other cheek. As a kid, I didn't understand what that meant. What do you mean turn the other cheek? If someone hits you, you need to turn the other cheek. But at that moment, I got it. Because I realized that wait a minute. He hit me not because he was such a bad person, yes it was, but because I was asking for it. I responded in the same manner that he did. I was just as bad as he was. And therefore, I was just as much at fault with the fight as him. And therefore, I have no grounds to be angry at him and mad at him. I had to move on, and I had to find that this was my fault, and then I have to learn from this mistake and never let it happen again. And my friends looked at me bewildered, but they sort of understood over time. Granted, throughout the next 2 weeks, D-Dub was looking at me, provoking me, trying to fight me again, threatening to kill me every time I would walk by. And I would walk by and I would smile, shake my head, and keep moving. And then eventually, about 3 weeks later, he comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Owen, I want to apologize for what happened. I want to apologize for what I did." And I said, "Sorry, D-Dub. You didn't really do anything. I was asking for it." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You know, I could have just walked away from you, and I should have, but I was just as stubborn as you were. And I got the result that I deserved. So I'm not even angry at you." And he said, "Really?" And he says, "Yeah." Because he was afraid that I was going to tell on him and I was going to put him to jail. And my father was a lawyer. He knew that I could have done that. But I told him that it was my fault and that he shouldn't be angry. I should be angry at myself. And after that, he respected me enough to where he always had my back and he never bullied me again. But what I came to in that lesson was that, yes, you should respect people, but you should respect people at all times. Even if they disrespect you, you don't return the same kind back. You respect them even though they won't respect you. And two, you never seek after revenge. It's not worth it. Because at the end of the day, it is your fault. You had something to do with what happened to you. So I had to relearn those lessons that I grew up with, and it made me a better person. He knocked me out in 2 ways. He knocked my jaw, broke my jaw, but he put some sense into me in that punch. And I became a better person because of it.